News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome. I'm Calvin Robinson in for Alastair Stewart this Christmas Eve. And for the next 2 hours, I'll be keeping you company on TV and radio with the stories that really matter all over the country. Plenty coming up. We'll be speaking to a veteran about the armed forces at Christmas. We'll have the latest on the rail strikes across the country. And we'll even be talking about ethnically diverse Christmas ornaments. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Calvin, thank you. Good afternoon. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Families driving home for the festive period face travel disruption with severe traffic on the roads due to train strikes today. Travellers heading abroad are also being warned of delays as Border Force officials walk out for a second day. Disruption at UK airports was brought under control yesterday as the military stepped in to replace workers on strike. Meanwhile, Scotland's rail operator is warning strikes starting today will severely limit services, with people being advised to only travel if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, there's disruption to Christmas deliveries for many as postal workers represented by the Communication Workers Union continue to walk off the job over pay jobs and conditions. Royal Mail employees began their industrial action on Friday ahead of Christmas. The acting General Secretary of the CWU told GB News he hopes the action will help the mail service strive in the future.
Members are very angry about the way they're being treated by Royal Mail. People don't take strike action lightly. People don't want to lose pay. They want to actually be at work serving the customer. But the overwhelming massive feedback from the customer is they support their postie, they support their Royal Mail workers. They understand that the strikes is not just about being greedy, it's about actually having a future service and ensuring this great Royal Mail service that's been there for 500 years can continue to thrive and grow in the future.
At least 12 people are thought to have died as a heavy storm sweeps across parts of the US. A number of fatalities have involved road traffic accidents, including a pile-up in Ohio that reportedly killed at least 2 motorists. Several were also injured. Temperatures plunged as low as -45 degrees in some areas, with around 200 million people under weather warnings. The storm is forecast to develop into what's being described as a bomb cyclone, bringing with it heavy, blinding snow. Members of the Kurdish community in Paris are gathering this morning at the scene of a shooting which left a woman and 2 men dead and several others injured. Yesterday, protesters clashed with police near where the attack happened. The French president called the incident a heinous attack on the Kurdish community. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police is in custody. Paris-based columnist for The Telegraph, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, told GB News the perpetrator doesn't fit the terrorist portrait.
69 years old. He's a former metro driver. He lived in a flat alone in the center of Paris. His own 90-year-old father says that he's crazy. He collected guns and managed to get some in France where the gun laws are very strict. And he came out of 1 year time in jail only 2 weeks ago, and that was already for attacking a camp of migrants. So all of this points to a racist murder.
The US Congress has passed a £37 billion emergency aid bill for Ukraine. The record military funding follows President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington on Wednesday, his first foreign trip since the start of Russia's invasion. The bill, which was passed only hours before the midnight deadline, was hotly contested by conservative Republicans who raised concerns about the level of US support for Ukraine. Forecasters are predicting a white Christmas for the Highlands with unsettled weather for the rest of the UK. The Met Office has put a yellow warning for snow and ice in place for most of the Highlands, running from tomorrow night until 6 p.m. on Boxing Day. Meanwhile, downpours are forecast in most other places over the Christmas weekend. The Environment Agency has issued 66 alerts for possible flooding in England. The rising cost of living has forced more than 32 pubs in England and Wales to close each month this year. Property group Altus says the overall number of pubs has gone down by almost 400 since last year as they struggle with soaring energy costs, rising food prices and a decreasing demand, as well as staffing issues. But the figure was 13% lower than in 2021. The NHS is warning parents about the risks of swallowing toy parts as an increase has seen more children admitted to hospital. The latest data shows the number of children having consumed a small object has doubled over the last 10 years to almost 230. Doctors are concerned about penny-sized batteries that make up part of several household items like festive lights and television remotes. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Calvin.
Welcome along to the show. Now, on Christmas Eve, midnight mass is a big part of the festive calendar for Christians, with thousands gathering at churches across Britain this evening to reflect on the sacrifices made by Jesus. But numbers may be declining, with census data this November showing that England and Wales are now minority Christian countries. Less than half the population, 27.5 million people, describe themselves as Christian, which is 5.5 million fewer than in 2011. there was also a big increase in the proportion of people saying they have no religion at all. Our Yorkshire reporter Anna Riley joins us now at Selby Abbey with a priest who believes that Christianity is still here to stay in England. Anna, who are you with?
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm here with Reverend Dan Thomas. Dan, we heard in November that Christianity's in decline, with people not saying that they're Christian, less than half the population of England and Wales. What do you make of that decline?
I don't think many of us in the church were that surprised by the figure. I think it's in line with what we've been seeing in our practice anyway. There's obviously been news of people reaching out and exploring their faith over the COVID period, but I think really it's a challenge for us as a church to think about how we reach out to people at this time.
And you'll see a lot more people at this time of year than you do normally. Midnight Mass coming up this evening, as well as some other services. What is it that brings people to the church at this time of year?
I think it's still a part of people's tradition. We're expecting to be quite busy here this evening. We've got the Archbishop of York coming down. I'm sure that will get people involved. But I think there's something about this time of year that people still connect it with the church. So we always see a few more, and it's a privilege to welcome them.
And you mentioned COVID. We're also going through a cost of living crisis. You know, how can faith support people through this?
I think my faith has given me a feeling that I'm a part of something a bit bigger. It gives language for me to explain connection to myself, connection to others, and connection to nature, as well as connection with God. So I think it's helpful.
And what is the Christmas message that you'll be spreading?
For me, the Christmas message is that God delights in being with us. God wants to be with us so much that he sent that little baby boy, Jesus, into a family experiencing a challenging economic time. And that's where God wanted to be. God wants to be with us. It's just a question of how we reach back.
Thank you, Dan. So that's the Christmas message here from Selby Abbey, and there'll be a lot of people gathering here this evening for Midnight Mass.
Thank you, Anna. I wonder if you could ask the Reverend Dan, how is he planning to counter the COVID crisis and the number of people that have dropped off, sadly, since the last couple of years and lockdown, etc.? Church numbers seem to be fewer than classroom sizes at this point. How is he going to combat that?
So Calvin's just mentioned, we touched on COVID and the real decline in numbers of people coming to church because of that. Have you got a plan to sort of counter that, to get more people in?
For me, numbers in the pews are a small measure of what makes a church successful. It's not all about the numbers coming through the door. For me, what's important is how we reach out, how we walk alongside people where they are, and how we develop those relationships. My belief is that if those relationships are meaningful and authentic, then numbers in church will follow. The challenge is for us to reach out.
And you do a lot in the community, don't you? You go to coffee shops, you've got food banks, so you do a lot to spread the message in the area.
Yeah, we're part of the warm welcome in the area as well, trying to help with the cost of living. And that's not just the Abbey, that's alongside other churches in the area as well as other public spaces. It's trying to work in partnership, I think, is really important.
Thank you. And I think Calvin's got one more question for you.
Reverend Dan, that was good. I think I'll join you in your prayers for growth in faith as well as growth in numbers. I think that's fantastic. In regards to, we saw this week a woman in the UK has been arrested for praying silently in her head. I'd just like to give you the opportunity to say something about that while you're on air, if that's okay.
Yes, so Calvin's just said, I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a woman arrested for praying silently in the street. Would you like to make a comment on that?
I couldn't possibly comment without knowing exactly what was involved at the time. It's not something I'm aware of, and I wouldn't feel comfortable commenting.
Not a problem at all. Thank you, Dan, and Merry Christmas from Selby Abbey.
Thank you both very much, and Happy Christmas to you too. I will add my 2 cents to that, in that I think it's never appropriate to be banned from praying anywhere in the country, and we should always celebrate people's faith, no matter what it is. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Please email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews and let us know what you think about what we've been talking about today. The Christmas season is typically a tough period for our military heroes who have returned from their deployment To help fight this, the government has announced new measures to help end veterans sleeping rough by 2023. The scheme, called Operation Fortitude, will enable veterans at risk of homelessness to access supported housing and wraparound specialist care in health, accommodation and education. Joining me in the studio is the ex-SAS trooper, Phil Campion, Big Phil, and his dog.
And me dog, it's Christmas, so he's in, yeah.
Thank you for coming along.
No, thanks for having us.
Boy. Phil, can you tell us, what is the support like for veterans this time of year at Christmas?
It very much depends on who you are. It really does, and how ingrained with the system you still are and all that sort of stuff. I know there's a lot of people out there probably not receiving the support, but there's no real system in place. Well, I'd like to see it change slightly when you leave. I'd like a probationary system in place whereby you can dip back in and back out as you like for a number of years. Because at the moment, it seems to me that some people are allowed to drift. It's not that no one cares. It's just that if you don't make the first move, you won't be caught,
right.
OK? Now, if there was some sort of system where maybe you did sort of like just tap in every now and again just to let people know that you were safe and secure, then a lot of people wouldn't go unnoticed. And obviously, you know, there are homeless veterans out there, which breaks my heart. It really does.
So it's not that people don't care, it's that they're falling through the cracks.
I think they're falling through the cracks. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of other stuff gets prioritised before our veterans sometimes, which perhaps maybe it shouldn't. I'm not saying that other things are more important, but there's nothing more important than a man that fought for his country, as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I don't think it's a complete lack of care, but like you say, people are dropping through holes in nets, and those holes shouldn't be there. They really shouldn't.
And can you tell me about the mental health of some of our veterans during Christmas?
Look, it's a tough time. It's a family time. You know, when you have an emotional period of whatever kind of emotion it is, that can reignite whatever those emotions were that are giving you those health problems. And it makes it very hard for some people. And if you compound that by being on your own, having other hardships to contend with as well, it makes it very, very difficult. You know, and I just, you know, anyone should have somebody who they would be able to reach out to. You know, and that would be my aim, is that everybody who leaves the forces has a continual support and feels that they can tap the door anytime they want. And I guess that some of them feel that they can't, or they're too proud to, or whatever, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But this needs to be instilled into soldiers while they're still serving. This needs to say, when you leave, we don't shut the door. You weren't just a number, thanks very much for your service. And it's not in many cases, but where they do lose them is where they're just allowed to drift away.
So what do you feel about the government pulling in the military to help throughout the strikes? Is that a good thing?
You sign up, you sign the dotted line. I've covered other people's work during my time in the military. You know, in fact, I went down to visit the troops last week, OK? I met some really good top men and women supporting, you know, the ambulance strike. And actually the attitude was exemplary. You know, oh, look, we might even get to learn something here. Do you know what I mean? So they were actually looking forward to doing something new. You know, another challenge, another day. One of the lads said, look, I'm single, I'll be in the block, I'll be drinking. But I'm not. I'm out here and I'm doing something, do you know what I mean? So, you know, their attitude will never change. No. You know, they know that you know, by signing on the dotted line, you know that you might at some point have to do something that went slightly against what you signed up for. But hey, you know, it's all part and parcel. And I think the attitude was extremely good of the soldiers and service people that I saw down at the Welly Barracks this week.
A lot of our followers and a lot of our viewers have been saying on Twitter, on social media, that it seems that veterans are being outed in favour of illegal immigrants who are being housed and supported and paid for by taxpayer money. Is that the case? Does it feel like there's an imbalance?
Oh, sure. Look, if you're the homeless squaddie, or someone who sees a homeless squaddie, and then you see someone who perhaps, in your view, does not fit the criteria, certainly doesn't fit the criteria in front of that person, then you're going to say something. You're going to feel a bit of begrudge. You know, the fact is, I don't believe any service person should be left in the cold. Any service person should be left without the medical care that they need. You know, if they have got mental health, they should come to the front of the queue every time. Some people might argue with me that they do come to the front of the queue, but what I'd say is, look, we need to grab these ones. We don't need to let them drift. We need to, where we identify it, grab them into the fold, have somewhere where they can go. Have the military have an arm or a branch that's open, that's like a probationary wing, that says, you know, for the rest of the time that you're on this planet, you've got somewhere to go. Do you know what I mean? Because it is a family to us. People in the military do consider it a family. You know, some people, that's the only family they've got.
I don't think we say thank you enough, and I know it's very American, but I'd like to use this opportunity just to thank our servicemen for the contribution.
It'd be well appreciated, Calvin, it really will. Honestly, and I love thanking the troops. Everywhere I go, you know, I say thanks, and they don't ask for it. No. But it's nice to get that pat on the back sometimes, isn't it?
Thankless job, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So happy Christmas to you, and happy
Thank you for having me on.
Our servicemen and women. We have much more to come on the show today, including a look at the latest sports news with Ada McGee. That's right after this break. Welcome back. I am the Reverend Calvin Robinson, covering for Alastair Stewart. You've been emailing on some views. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. John says, as it has been shown that our military have done a better job at the borders than Border Force have done previously, maybe it's time for their functions to become part of our military's responsibilities. They should be paid at the current rate, but come under King's regulations and be ready for military operations as all others in Army, Royal Navy and Royal Air Force. I'm a veteran of 10 years service in the Royal Air Force, and I know our boys and girls in uniform can do a far better job. Merry Christmas. Thank you for that, John. I think it's always good to show support for our services. It was great to have Big Phil on here previously. It's been interesting in that they can fill the role, they can jump in and get things done, and perhaps we need to look at increasing the service rate and what goes on there with the military stepping in when these strikers try to cripple our country. Right, let's move on to the sport, because Christmas is a big time for sport, and the Premier League returns to action on Boxing Day after a break from the World Cup. Joining me now is sports broadcaster and writer Aidan McGee to take us through the weekend's biggest sports stories. Aidan, what's going on in the back pages?
Good morning to you, first of all, Father. Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier on off set, didn't I, where we were talking about, now, there's this guy called Calvin Phillips.
Is this the fat footballer?
Yeah.
Right.
He's not, when I say, I'll take you through the story. Basically, he played 54 minutes for Manchester City. He got a big move last summer from Leeds to Manchester City, £45 million. He's only played 54 minutes of football because he had a shoulder injury. To be fair, he had surgery as recently as October, I think he was. He played in the opening day of the season. He then got selected for the World Cup. Now, he had been a stalwart for England in the previous World Cup. When I say stalwart, he's only 27, but he performed well for Gareth Southgate. He got picked, and therefore, some people were thinking, well, it's a bit, although he's done well before, he hasn't played much football, so what's he doing at the World Cup? Now, he played 2 substitute appearances for England against Wales and Senegal in the last couple of weeks, and yet he comes back to training in the last week or last few days or so, last week, I imagine. Pep Guardiola, his manager at Manchester City yesterday, said, look, he was asked if he's going to be available, and he said, oh, he's not fit. And they said, oh, well, what's wrong with him? Because they thought it might be a recurrence of his shoulder injury. And he went, no, it's not fit, as in he's overweight. He's come back not in shape to play football. Right. Now, when you say fat footballer, we have to put it in context here. Fat for a footballer might mean a pound or 2 overweight. I'm sure he can probably get rid of that over a period of time. The problem is Manchester City, with this hiatus in the middle of the season, everyone's got a stockpile of fixtures, a backlog of fixtures after now we're resuming on Boxing Day. And City, I think, have got 8 games in just over 3 weeks. That's a lot in football terms, it really is. It's a lot of minutes. So they're going to need people like Calvin Robinson, who's going to be coming back. Calvin Robinson.
I'm not playing football, I'll tell you now. They don't want me playing.
A bit of height up front. Calvin Phillips, sorry. Yeah, so they're going to need him back. They're going to need him as part of their squad. And,
but while he was out there, surely he wasn't just sat around eating kebabs. Surely he was training and
that was the question
as well.
That was the question. It seemed Pep Guardiola seems to be at a loss to explain why exactly he'd come back in bad shape. So we don't know how much he was over. There's no evidence he was breaking the scales or anything like that. But nonetheless, it doesn't say much for the regime that the FA were running. And with all that heat over there as well, you imagine it was quite difficult to put on a bit
weight. Like the studio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. They never seem to get it right, do they? I think in the morning it's very cold. It gets progressively hot. But you probably cook your turkey in here right now.
Tell me about it.
So yeah, I just wonder though, was it necessary for his manager to fat shame him like that? I'm not sure.
Maybe he's just giving a friendly nudge to get him to get back into shape.
Yeah, probably.
Nothing wrong with a bit of fat shaming.
No, true.
Tell me about your Christmas. What are you doing?
I'm working tomorrow morning. I was going to go to midnight mass tonight. I was watching your segment earlier on.
Good man.
I find that midnight mass is sometimes spoiled by a few. I've had drunks come into the church before. Right. So they might come in to finish at the pub at say 11 and make their way into church. I remember services being disrupted as a child. And then there'd be the once-a-year crew, I mean, not the regulars. I'm not saying people should be excluded because they only come once a year. But I mean, it's quite unedifying when churches have to have security to stop drunks getting in. So I don't know if that's been mentioned by anybody previously, but it has been a problem at our church, at the various churches I've been to over the last 25, 30 years or whatever. But I'll be going to 6 o'clock mass. So we call it the children's mass. So that'll be at my local church in Bromley. I'll maybe go to one in Orpington. Haven't decided quite yet, but you have to get there early these days because there's a big queue. And then tomorrow morning I'm working. I'm doing my 21st Christmas day in a row. Wow. So I don't want to break the record, that's the. But then you're never home after about 12 o'clock. Our Christmas doesn't really get going until 2 p.m. We've got dinner at my brother's and my sister-in-law's in the afternoon. And then in the evening, they're coming to mine for my festive Christmas menu. I don't know if you can see it up there. There you go. I'll give you literally a flavour of what I've got. Festive puff pastry vol au vent. So it's finger food. It's like a tasting menu almost. We've got ham and cheese croquettes, tomato and mozzarella arancini. Arancini is not Chelsea's new signing, by the way. And then the Berries Royale cocktails. I
love the detail you've gone into.
Well, the cocktails are interesting because I trialled them a couple of days ago. was going to say a dry run, but no, it's actually a wet run, I guess, isn't it? But I've tried it. I've never done it before. Tasted it on Thursday, I think it was Wednesday. They tasted really good. We've got one member of our family who's under the age of 18, so she'll be getting a non-alcoholic one if she's watching. So don't get too excited. And after that, a selection of personalised Galaxy Rice Krispie cakes, other chocolates are available. Everyone has to be vacated from the premises by 21:30. So I've got work.
I'm sure your family will appreciate that. I love that you mentioned midnight mass as well. I'm going to midnight mass. I'm going to be deaconing for the first time this year.
Fantastic. Where's that? North West London?
Yes, it will be in North West London. Cannot wait. That'll be fantastic. Tell me about the darts as well before we.
Yeah, the darts. Well, look, the darts is it's the PDC World Championships this time of year. We get the BDO version after Christmas. There's, again, a bit like the World Cup, there's a hiatus in the middle. We've got the UGUPs, I think it's the roundup, or quarterfinals, I think it is before Christmas, and then it resumes on the 27th. Now, the issue is here, the number of competitors in the field was increased in 2019 to about 90. It's now increased to 148. That's a big jump. It just dilutes the quality.
Why is that?
At the lower end. Well, I think there are a few reasons for it. I mean, for example, they want to include a Ukrainian for the sake of including.
Oh, of course they do.
A Ukrainian. He wasn't up to scratch. I'm not saying he won't be in future, but he was wiped out. You're seeing a lot of whitewash games in the early rounds, which dilutes the quality. People are paying good money to see that, not just through their subscriptions through satellite TV, but also through turning up at the Alexandra Palace and paying for tickets, etc. So it's a bigger tournament. It dilutes the quality slightly. I still think it'll be good quality after Christmas because the good players will still get through to the latter rounds.
It's a proper Christmas sport, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, some people say it's not a sport. I would argue that it is.
You can't be fat-shamed in that, can you?
Well, no, it's a bit late for that. So Peter Wright's still in it. He's a champion from last year, and it resumes after Christmas. I've got some good friends working there. I'll be hoping to go to see it myself. But it's a real, to be fair to the broadcasters who run it, they've made it into a Christmas tradition. I don't remember it being much of a Christmas tradition when I was a child, but it very much is now.
Love that. Thank you very much, sports.
Have a good Christmas to you as well, Calvin.
Happy Christmas, mate. Let's have a look at a couple more of your views that you've been sending in. Linda says, "Hi, GB News. I wish you all a happy Christmas and New Year. I love this channel. It's great how the British people can air their views. I have your channel on most days, and you all feel like part of our family. Keep up your brilliant. All the best, Linda." Oh, thank you, Linda. That's very kind, very sweet. Happy Christmas to you and your family too. Now let's move on. If you've ever thought Christmas wasn't all you thought it would be, spare a thought for those who may not see another. In Northern Ireland, the Children to Lapland Trust took a plane load of children with terminal and life-threatening conditions to see Father Christmas, and our reporter Dougie Beattie went along to find out more.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh.
Christmas gifts can come in many forms, and for families that have had a child with terminal or life-threatening illnesses, a getaway to a land of innocence, snow and make-believe may just be the ticket.
It means everything really, to be honest. We've never been in a family trip like this before, so it's going to be magical.
Yeah, this is the first time. This is Evie's first time away too. It's your first holiday? Yeah.
Ella was diagnosed with a brain tumour. So we had went through a whole year of chemo, radiation and everything, and we've come to the end of it, and the nurses said to us that they would nominate her, and that's how we got here.
The wait is finally over. This privately chartered jet behind me will fly these children to Lapland for the magic of Christmas and to meet Santa.
I'm going to see Santa.
Ah, and what are you going to ask him for?
A present.
I'm going to ask him for like a gaming monitor and LED lights and all for my bedroom.
With such a journey, medical experience must be on hand. And Dr. Mark Rowlands is the medical director and explains the seriousness of the situation.
These children are sick. I mean, they are life limited and terminal. Some of these kids might never see Santa Claus again, so this is a big, big trip. But you name it, they've had everything: liver transplants, heart transplants, bone marrow transplants. Still a lot of them under a lot of care and treatment at the moment. They're all stabilised. We've all had the go-ahead from their individual consultants that they're fit to go, and we want to make sure that they have a great day.
Even the flight crew have a soft spot for this trip, and Captain John Rowland is no different.
Oh, it's wonderful to see all the kids going away to see Father Christmas. They're really excited, so I love doing these flights.
The landscape and climate here are very different, and that gives the families an opportunity to sample some new experiences. The highlight of the day is the one-to-one with Santa, and his advice for children was very clear.
How long should it be before they go to sleep on Christmas Eve?
On Christmas Eve it could be very good if they can go and sleep about at least at 9 o'clock in the evening, yeah. And then if they have a fireplace, so that they should check up that they have no fire in the fireplace on Christmas Eve.
The whole experience may be a lot to put into one day, but the children on this plane need specific medical support, and time is of the essence. But for most, it's a day that dreams will be realised and memories made. Dougie Beattie, GB News.
Thank you, Dougie Beattie. I absolutely loved that. That was so wholesome. Thank you. Coming up, GB News presenter Gloria De Peo goes to a community in her latest Gloria Meets. But first, here's your latest news with Tatiana.
Calvin, thank you. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. Protesters have clashed again with police in Paris as a vigil was being held at the scene of a shooting which left a woman and 2 men dead and several others injured. These are now the live pictures from Paris. Police appear to be using tear gas to disperse the crowd. It's after riots broke out yesterday in the wake of the attack. Members of the Kurdish community have been gathering this morning close to where the incident happened. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police is in custody. This is a developing story and we'll bring you more on it as we get it. Families driving home for the festive period face travel disruption with severe traffic on the roads due to train strikes today. Travellers heading abroad are also being warned of delays as Border Force officials walk out for a second day. Disruption at UK airports was brought under control yesterday as the military stepped in to replace workers on strike. Meanwhile, Scotland's rail operator is warning strikes starting today will severely limit services, with people being advised to only travel if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, there's disruption to Christmas deliveries for many as postal workers represented by the Communication Workers Union continue to walk off the job over pay, jobs and conditions. Royal Mail employees began their industrial action on Friday ahead of Christmas. At least 12 people are thought to have died as a heavy storm sweeps across parts of the US. A number of fatalities have involved road traffic accidents, including a pile-up in Ohio that reportedly killed at least 2 motorists. Several were also injured. Temperatures plunged as low as minus 45 degrees in some areas, with around 200 million people under weather warnings. The storm is forecast to develop into what's being described as a bomb cyclone, bringing with it heavy, blinding snow. And forecasters are predicting a white Christmas for the Highlands with unsettled weather for the rest of the UK. The Met Office has put a yellow warning for snow and ice in place for most of the Highlands, running from tomorrow night until 6 p.m. on Boxing Day. Meanwhile, downpours are forecast in most other places over the Christmas weekend. The Environment Agency has issued 66 alerts for possible flooding in England. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mixed with plenty of sunny weather towards the southeast and more changeable elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in Scotland, here the earlier rain and hill snow will become confined to the Northern Isles. Heavy showery rain in the west, best of any sunshine in the east. Across Northern Ireland, there will be plenty of outbreaks of showery rain. These could turn heavy and perhaps thundery later on with hail possible. Whilst the afternoon will start dry and bright in the northwest of England, a spell of heavy rain is likely later, with hail and lightning for some. It will be a similar story for much of Wales. We can expect some fine weather for a time before a band of rain pushes through, likely turning thundery at times. Meanwhile, in the East Midlands, the weather should stay fine through the afternoon, with plenty of winter sunshine. Perhaps not feeling as mild as during recent days, with highs of around 9 Celsius. It's a similar picture as we look across East Anglia. Here too, we can expect a dry and mostly sunny afternoon. Temperatures may just about scrape into double digits. Somewhat cloudier towards the south coast, with some showers pushing through, though these should be relatively few and far between. It will be milder here, with highs of around 12 Celsius. A band of intense, showery rain will push eastwards this evening, bringing the risk of hail and thunder. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television and online, across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. Clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I am the Reverend Calvin Robinson, standing in for Alastair Stewart. In her latest Gloria Meets episode, our GB News presenter Gloria De Piero has gone to a community store where people go to top up their food shops as they deal with the impact of the cost of living crisis.
This is the Evelyn Community Store in South London. For £3.50 a week, local people can sign up and that entitles them to get extra food to feed their families. The essentials, really. But who uses a place like this? Well, 2 of the 4 people we're about to meet are in work. The other 2 have worked pretty much all their lives and until pretty recently, but are currently too sick to be in the workplace. Do you know what? Let them tell their own stories. Let's go inside.
We're roughly about the same age.
Yeah.
Places like this didn't exist when we were growing up.
Yeah.
What would, just chip in as you feel, what would your life be like if you weren't a member of this club where you pay £3.50 a week to top up your shopping?
It would be a lot harder. It would be a lot harder, no doubt about it. There would be many things in your freezer and fridge and cupboard that you couldn't have. Things are a lot better. It's not so tough on me, Gloria, because I don't have children. I've only got to look out for them, so it's a damn sight easier.
You were homeless?
No, I'm not homeless now.
But you were?
No, I was, but that was a year ago, so that's irrelevant now. That doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what happened before. What matters is now, in the future. So I'm not homeless now, and I don't have children, so my life's not so bad. So I've got no complaints.
Tell me how would you, so you both you and your husband are working full time, you've got 5 children. How would you feed them all, afford to feed them all? Because you're trying to better yourself as well, you're trying to get a new qualification to be an accountant.
I would say that life would be impossible. Because, I mean, prior to this, I've been in debts, having to pay back like times where I had child tax credit, always having to pay back the child tax credit. I mean, I'm still paying back child tax credit because I had a child in nursery at some point, and my husband was off work for 3 years. He lost his job. And during that time, there was so much. I mean, I must say that there were times at the beginning with my family where I was grateful, actually, to be able to buy baby food with a credit card. So those are times where, when you think that being grateful to have a credit card, but to buy food. So it's not like going to buy something luxurious, a nice boot, pair of boots, but just to buy food. And I was grateful for that.
Yeah, right.
I'm telling you, I can't tell you, I cannot put a value to what it has done. Because not only, at least, it has reduced my food bill a lot. And then we get exposed to things that I personally wouldn't have gone to the shop to buy because I would know that I cannot afford it. I would not go to shop in Waitrose. We have things from Waitrose sometimes. We have things from Marks and Spencer, you know, which I would not have gone to buy because I know I cannot afford that.
What would it be like if you didn't have the supply of food that you get from here?
I'd probably be on baked beans on toast every day because, you know, luckily I like baked beans. Some brands more than others, but I mean...
But not every night,
No,
exactly,
no.
Yeah, of course, this is it. Yeah, right,
It would be tough without the supplies for you, so...
Even though I work part-time here, it helps top up my shopping as well because I find out I'm spending less in Tesco's now than I was spending before.
Things are so expensive. Because things...
the community store is a godsend.
I don't know what I would have done without it.
Yeah, it's a godsend.
For the last 5.5 years of my life. It's done a hell of a lot for me.
Yeah, we get to eat the fruits and vegetables that we probably couldn't afford. So, you know, it's
Cost of food, going to the supermarket, putting the heating on. How much do you worry about putting the heating on? Do you have to? We have to do it.
I haven't put it on so far.
You haven't?
No,
I've
just been putting...
You haven't put it on?
I mean, since winter came, well, I haven't turned my central heating on. And then obviously, when I wanted to turn it on, I discovered it wasn't working. It's been repaired. It was being repaired, but I still haven't turned it on. But luckily, I have this one oil-filled radiator. So that's what I have in my sitting room. So I'm warming my sitting room. I mean, since it got cold, I've only warmed my sitting room. But then I'll have the issue where I have mold. So it's just going to get worse this winter because I'm not going to heat the house.
Do you own your house?
No, I'm in a council property. So they do it when summer comes, then winter comes, the mold comes back again. So even with the heating, the mold was there. So without heating, it's just going to get very, very bad. But then,
that's not right.
So you two have always voted.
Yeah, I've always voted.
And you two basically have always not.
I just forget. Most of the time I forget.
But if you thought somebody was fighting for you and if it would make a difference to your life, you would vote?
Yeah, of course.
People feel disenfranchised. They feel disillusioned. It's understandable that people think just like, well, what's the point? Well, because if it isn't exactly. So if it's not going to make any real difference, well, it's a fair question. What is the point?
It's like...
What is the point, you know?
I mean, I could swear now, but I'm not going to. But, you know, I've had conversations with a couple of friends and I say they can't organise... the government can't organise in a brewery, you know. They can't. We'd be better off. People like us, we'd be better off.
People like you with your life experience
were
able to have a voice and decision, and like because you know what decisions are made to help people who are struggling. So many people struggling with the cost of living.
I just want to hopefully be here to watch my son grow up and leave uni, because he wants to go uni in a couple of years. So
how does that make you feel that your son's going to...
Proud, very proud of him. He's very academic as well, so I'm very proud of him, yeah. So, because he's got no dad, I just want to hope that I'll be here to see him do that. That's the only one thing I want to do.
That's really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was fascinating. Thank you, Gloria. I think it's always important to have more normal people airing normal views, and that's exactly what GB News is for. Now, in a time where everyone and everything is racist, Christmas is no exception. Apparently, some take offence at the idea of a white Christmas. Not to worry, there are now ranges of ethnically diverse Christmas ornaments for people who want their trimmings to reflect them. And although used as an accompaniment to the festivities, they can also help to open up difficult conversations on race and colour. To shed some light on this topic, I'm joined by the social policy analyst and cultural writer, Dr. Rakib Ihsan. Rakib, where are you really from?
Where am I really from? Well, Calvin, I was born in Fulham, family home's in Luton. I'm originally of Bangladeshi and North Indian origin. It's not very difficult, is it? No need to be offended by that question.
Thank you very much, Rakib. I knew you'd be straight up with that. What do you think about multiculturalism? Do you think it needs reining in to build social cohesion for the good of Brits from all ethnic, religious and cultural backgrounds?
Well, Calvin, you ask a great question. I think it's been a difficult year on the multiculturalism front. We saw the Leicester disorders primarily between young Muslim and Hindu men in a city which has traditionally been heralded as a paragon of multiculturalism and interfaith relations. We've also seen the publication of numerous reports on group-based child sexual abuse, where public institutions prioritise racial sensitivities over the bread and butter of protecting the most vulnerable. So I think that what we need to do, we need to do away with state-sponsored multiculturalism in Britain. We need to focus more on shared values, mutual
Brighton University saying, you know, have a happy winter closure period instead of saying afraid of offending people that aren't Christian. Now, I know you're not a Christian yourself, and I see you there in a Christmas jumper, so I'm taking it on good faith that you're not offended by the word Christmas. Can we just shed some light on this, that people from other faiths, other religions, don't tend to be offended by people that have a faith or religion?
Well, I mean, we have a diversity of faiths in my hometown of Luton. I've never come across anyone. I haven't come across a single non-Christian who's offended by the greeting Merry Christmas. I think much of this is completely imaginary. And I think all too often you have, modern left-wing activists, many of them suffering from a white saviour complex, who think that ethnic and religious minorities in the UK need to be constantly mollycoddled. They're fabricating problems. And I think what they're doing, instead of cultivating social cohesion, they're actually creating tensions between communities through their activist endeavours.
No, I'm with you entirely. That mollycoddling that you speak of is actually a form of condescending racism, isn't it? Because it's seeing...
very patronising.
Yeah, it's seeing people differently and treating them differently based on their ethnicity. We saw the Sussexes release a Christmas card that said, what was it, joyous holiday season. Again, every time I speak about this, people say, you're making it up, Calvin. No one's trying to cancel Christmas, but people are literally taking the word Christmas out of Christmas. Do you think there's something deeper behind this, or is it just people like me being culture warriors and stirring things up that don't exist?
Well, I think that what we've seen in recent times, and this came through the latest census data, Calvin, is that there has been a decline in Christian identification in England and Wales. Back in 2001, over 7 in 10 people living in England and Wales identified as Christian. For the first time in a census, that's dropped to under half. I believe 46.2% is the latest figures from the 2021 census. I do feel there are certain groups in society, political groups. There's one thing promoting secularism, but what I'm quite worried about is that there's this growing comfort when it comes to anti-Christian sentiment. I think that some of these groups that I refer to, they're very protective when it comes to minority faiths living in England expressing their religious identity, celebrating their festivities. But that sort of freedom, that sense of celebration, isn't necessarily afforded to traditional Christians, and I think that's a crying shame, and that should change.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, obviously, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're a Muslim man, and I think you've been used as a scapegoat. I think many of these, I call them metropolitan liberal elites, but the secularists will use you as an excuse to rid us of people like me, to say we don't want to be talking about Christ, we don't want to be talking about Christmas because it might offend the Muslim minorities. And I think, honestly, that's a shame and it's a disgrace and it's politicization of both of our faiths. But I want to ask you specifically about the case that's been talked about a lot this week, in that there has been a wonderful lady called Isabel, who has been arrested for praying silently in her head within the bounds of a PSPO area. Now, should it ever be against the law to pray in your own head?
I'm amazed by that story, if truth be told. But in some ways, I'm not. There'll be some people who won't be surprised because, as I said, there's one thing promoting community cohesion through, say, secular organisations, but what we're seeing there, that's a fundamental lack of tolerance. And I feel that will feed into growing perceptions that forms of religious expression, quiet moments of prayer in public, religious minorities are afforded those freedoms, and I think that's actually a good thing. But members of Christian communities are not necessarily afforded those freedoms. So what you have is almost a two-tier system, which is developing, and I think that we should be very worried about that.
Absolutely with you. As always, the wonderful Dr. Rakib Ehsan. Mate, happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, mate.
That's what it's all about. Now let's get to some of your views. Andy wrote in to say, I want to express my appreciation to Calvin. Our family are not at all religious, but we all enjoy his show so much. It's good to see a different type of show with the different view. Thank you, Andy. That's very kind of you to say. I think many people have been asking for something a little bit more religious, but we've been so shy about doing it on TV, especially on other channels that I won't mention. Edwin says, Calvin, people have lost faith in the church because of the clergy. They don't stand for anything, and look how they were when COVID was around. I don't trust most of them because they twist lots of things in the Bible, but I still class myself as a Christian. That makes me sad to hear, Edwin. It really does, and I can completely see where you're coming from. I think if clergy, a lot of them did, but if the clergy truly had faith, they would never have closed their churches because their faith in God is more powerful than their belief in the establishment or the government or COVID or mosques or vaccines or anything else. It's a great shame that they turned people away. But I mean, we saw today on the channel that, you ask a clergyman to stand up for the freedom of religion, to freedom to pray, and they're very shy about doing so, very reticent. It's a great shame. Christian, great name, says, Merry Christmas to Calvin and the rest of the GBNews team. I noticed Calvin has a gaming laptop on his desk. Does he have any video games under the tree for tomorrow? A keen eye, well spotted, Christian. It is a gaming laptop. I haven't played any games on it in a long time, shamefully. I don't have the time these days, but I used to think video gaming was a good relief, a good stress relief. Thank you for that. I hope you're going to have some time to play some games this Christmas. Just a couple more emails. Thank you for sending these in, by the way. We really do appreciate it. Harry says, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a healthy 2023. I've been watching GB News since the first day, a refreshing and balanced way of presenting news and opinions. Calvin, you are receiving plenty of support at Conservative Woman. Excellent, you've worked hard for that. Thank you, Harry, really do appreciate that as well. Conservative Woman is an amazing outlet. Check them out on the internet if you haven't before. They've just got a review up of our Christmas special, which goes live after this show today, actually, and again tomorrow. You are watching and listening to Calvin Robinson. Lots more coming up on this show this afternoon. But first, let's take a look at the weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mixed with plenty of sunny weather towards the southeast and more changeable elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in Scotland, here the earlier rain and hill snow will become confined to the Northern Isles. Heavy showery rain in the west, best of any sunshine in the east. Across Northern Ireland, there will be plenty of outbreaks of showery rain. These could turn heavy and perhaps thundery later on, with hail possible. Whilst the afternoon will start dry and bright in the northwest of England, a spell of heavy rain is likely later, with hail and lightning for some. It will be a similar story for much of Wales. We can expect some fine weather for a time before a band of rain pushes through, likely turning thundery at times. Meanwhile, in the East Midlands, the weather should stay fine through the afternoon, with plenty of winter sunshine. Perhaps not feeling as mild as during recent days, with highs of around 9 Celsius. It's a similar picture as we look across East Anglia. Here too, we can expect a dry and mostly sunny afternoon. Temperatures may just about scrape into double digits. Somewhat cloudier towards the south coast, with some showers pushing through, though these should be relatively few and far between. It will be milder here, with highs of around 12 Celsius. A band of intense showery rain will push eastwards this evening, bringing the risk of hail and thunder. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Hello and welcome back. I'm the Reverend Calvin Robinson, stepping in for Alastair Stewart this Christmas Eve. Lots more to come this hour, including a heartwarming report on terminally ill children being flown to Lapland to meet Father Christmas. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Calvin, thank you. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Protesters have clashed again with police in Paris as a vigil was being held at a Kurdish cultural centre where a gunman killed a woman and 2 men and left several others injured. Well, these are live pictures from France now, and police appear to be using tear gas to disperse the crowd. It's after riots broke out yesterday in the wake of the attack. Members of the community have been gathering this morning close to where the incident happened. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police is in custody in relation to the shooting. Paris-based columnist for The Telegraph, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, told GB News the perpetrator doesn't fit the terrorist portrait.
He's 69 years old. He's a former metro driver. He lived in a flat alone in the center of Paris. His own 90-year-old father says that he's crazy. He collected guns and managed to get some in France where the gun laws are very strict. And he came out of 1 year time in jail only 2 weeks ago, and that was already for attacking a camp of migrants. So all of this points to a racist murder.
Families driving home for the festive period face travel disruption with severe traffic on the roads due to train strikes today. Travellers heading abroad are also being warned of delays as Border Force officials walk out for a second day. Disruption at UK airports was brought under control yesterday as the military stepped in to replace workers on strike. Meanwhile, Scotland's rail operator is warning strikes starting today will severely limit services, with people being advised to only travel if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, there's disruption to Christmas deliveries for many as postal workers represented by the Communication Workers Union continue to walk off the job over pay, jobs and conditions. Royal Mail employees began their industrial action on Friday ahead of Christmas. The acting General Secretary of the CWU told GB News he hopes the action will help the mail service strive in the future.
Members are very angry about the way they're being treated by Royal Mail. People don't take strike action lightly. People don't want to lose pay. They want to actually be at work serving the customer. But the overwhelming massive feedback from the customer is they support their postie, they support their Royal Mail workers. They understand that the strikes is not just about being greedy, it's about actually having a future service and ensuring this great Royal Mail service that's been there for 500 years can continue to thrive and grow in the future.
At least 12 people are thought to have died as a heavy storm sweeps across parts of the US. A number of fatalities have involved road traffic accidents, including a pile-up in Ohio that reportedly killed at least 2 motorists. Several were also injured. Temperatures plunged as low as minus 45 degrees in some areas, with around 200 million people under weather warnings. The storm's forecast to develop into what's being described as a bomb cyclone, bringing with it heavy, blinding snow. Forecasters are predicting a white Christmas for the Highlands with unsettled weather for the rest of the UK. The Met Office has put a yellow warning for snow and ice in place for most of the Highlands, running from tomorrow night until 6 p.m. on Boxing Day. Meanwhile, downpours are forecast in most other places over the Christmas weekend. The Environment Agency has issued 66 alerts for possible flooding in England. The rising cost of living has forced more than 32 pubs in England and Wales to close each month this year. Property group Atlas says the overall number of pubs has gone down by almost 400 since last year as they struggle with soaring energy costs, rising food prices and a decreasing demand as well as staffing issues. But the figure was 13% lower than in 2021. The NHS is warning parents about the risks of swallowing toy parts as an increase has seen more children admitted to hospital. The latest data shows the number of children having consumed a small object has doubled over the last 10 years to almost 230. Doctors are concerned about penny-sized batteries that make up part of several household items like festive lights and TV remotes. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Calvin.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has used his Christmas message to thank public servants. Let's take a listen.
Hello.
Hi, is that Chris?
Yes, Ethan. Hi there.
Hi, Chris. It's Rishi Sunak. How are you?
What? Hello? Oh my God.
Hi, is that Nick? My name's Rishi.
Oh my goodness, hello.
I'm British Prime Minister. I thought we'd give you a call to say thank you, Sharon, for an incredible job that you've done.
It's such a big surprise.
Because I know you've played a really important role in helping provide support during the flooding that's happened recently, and you did some extraordinary things.
Thank you, Rishi, for giving me this opportunity, and being honest, this appreciation means a lot and has taken me by a complete surprise as well.
You guys are doing an incredible job for us, and I know it's not easy, both the length of time that you're away from your friends and families.
Yes, it's Lieutenant Leslie here. We're obviously in quite a unique area here down in South Georgia, and when we operate down in Antarctica. So we're quite lucky with what we do, doing the survey work down here and supporting British interest in scientific research down here.
Although I was reading, have you guys been playing some football along the way as well?
Yes, sir. Chief Colson here. Not very well. Lost 7-1.
You lost 7-1? Dear oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I've heard that you've taken a leading role in organising Christmas, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Christmas.
You and me both.
Yeah, I've been ferrying things in over the last few breather breaks to try and make it as festive as possible on compound, which is a bit of a challenge when it's 40 degrees and there's palm trees everywhere.
So I just wanted to say a massive thank you. I know the work you're doing, particularly with Al-Shabaab, is so important.
Oh, thank you, and I will pass your best on to the compound residents.
You were working for us in Kyiv originally, is that right? And then you went to Warsaw and now into Lviv. So you've been living in 3 different places this year.
Yes, absolutely. That's with hard work and the solidarity and with the support of the senior leadership.
From me, from everyone else in government, can I just say an enormous thank you to you for all your hard work this year. Just calling to say thank you for all the work you do. And at Smart Play, what you do is fantastic. It makes a big difference to some people who need that extra bit of help. You know, we're delighted to fund work like yours, and particularly this time of year, as I said, it makes a big difference. So I just wanted to call and say thank you to you for that.
Honestly, it means so much to me to get that feedback, and it really does. And I hope you have a lovely Christmas, your family too, and everyone else. And yeah, thank you again. Like I said, just in such shock, but yeah, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Take care. Have a great Christmas.
What was that? Oh my gosh. I cringed so hard I nearly broke a rib. Honestly, we're watching the Prime Minister work. Why could he not just look at the camera and wish all the citizens of the United Kingdom a happy Christmas? Anyway, Christmas is a time where families reunite, share a delicious Christmas meal together, and share gifts with family and friends. But the true meaning of Christmas lies in the birth of our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ. This is an important festival for Christians. So joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Gavin Ashenden, former chaplain to Her Late Majesty the Queen, to shed some light on it. First of all, welcome and happy Christmas, Dr. Ashenden. I understand you are going to be back on air in just under an hour in the GB News Christmas special. So we'll go into greater depth in that show. But for now, what did you make of the PM's Christmas message?
Hello, Calvin. Happy Christmas. Thank you very much for having me on. It's great to do this together. Well, I was annoyed and embarrassed by it. We go out of our way to wish Muslims happy Eid and the Hindus happy Diwali. It's the birthday of Jesus. Is it too much to ask that since half the country is Christian, we might respect Jesus in some kind of way? He's the most extraordinary figure in the whole of human history. He's utterly captivating. His influence on people has done the most wonderful good. Why would you ignore him? It just seems rude to me and a bit narrow-minded.
Yeah, it was an embarrassed Christmas message, wasn't it? Have you noticed a greater shift away from the word Christmas, with universities, celebrities and politicians choosing instead to say happy holidays?
That's right, and we should really call people out on it. If they're going to claim to be diverse and imagine that everything should be treated equally, there's no harm in that. We can celebrate that. But it's equality for everybody except Christians. It's respect for all religious figures except Jesus. It's a favouring of institutions, but not the church. we should really tell people that their hypocrisy is unwelcome and it's unnecessary. But there's so much to celebrate in Christianity. It's the most wonderful faith and the most extraordinary experience, and it revolutionizes society. Why this constant diminishment? I think it's because people are afraid of it.
Why indeed? Is this an Americanization, or is there something deeper behind it? I might suggest personally that they can't say the word Christ. That's why they're avoiding saying Christmas.
One of my rules of thumb is one asks practical questions first of all, and then theological questions afterwards. I think practically one of the things it does is people are anxious about being constrained in their personal preferences sexually, particularly. And the fact is, Christianity has a very strong and powerful sexual ethic, which is extremely good for society. And when you get rid of it, all the evidence is society becomes more decadent. But the other thing is that we live in a spiritual battle. And all that means, I think, is that one can see that good and evil are fighting against each other, and particularly in the human heart. And I think what it means is that people are afraid of the good. And there's a sense that somehow to mention, Jesus is only ever mentioned as a swear word. Why is that? Why do you never heard people using other religious figures' names as swear word? Why is it only Jesus? I strongly suspect that this is part of the toxification of the soul, and that people are being got at by evil, and they simply don't know it. But they should listen to themselves and ask whether or not something's gone wrong, that they can only treat the name of God, the compassionate, the kind, the forgiving, the all-loving, with surrounded by F words and cursing. There's something spiritually wrong as well as intellectually.
So let's talk about the good. Let's talk about the true meaning of Christmas. Can you summarize it for us?
Yes, I think I can. Being alive is a very strange business. What are we doing here? Where did we come from? Where are we going to? So the first question is there intelligence behind the universe? And what Christmas tells us is, yes, there is. Is there meaning in the universe instead of meaninglessness and chaos? Yes, Christmas says there's meaning. Is the meaning well disposed towards us or not? It could be like the Norsemen and the Vikings, where Thor was a really quite brutal god. Christmas says, yes, the intelligent meaning is immensely well disposed towards us and has come to find us, to love us, to forgive us, and to remake us. For people struggling with a sense of low self-esteem and wondering what they're doing in life, and particularly how they can overcome ethical and psychological issues like forgiveness and hope, Christmas has all the answers. Jesus literally has all the answers the human heart needs. But the problem is that people don't hear about it. They don't hear what he teaches. They hear him only as a swear word. They don't read the Gospels. And the church has been so bad and ashamed at telling people about who Jesus is and how an experience of relationship with him can turn one's whole life around. And having turned one's life around can turn society's life around. We can see this all the way through history.
You're right, absolutely. But we shouldn't get a victimhood complex about this, because we know that the Christian faith thrives under persecution. And now that we are a minority faith in this country and intolerance towards Christianity is growing, surely that means that the country will be returning to its Christian roots, will it not?
Well, the astonishing thing about the faith is that it's exploding all over the world. It's exploding in Asia and in China, enormous numbers of Christians in China. And in Africa, the only place it's having a hard time because it's being discriminated against is Europe and America. But the extraordinary thing about Christianity is it meets the needs of the human soul. And in fact, the more Christians are persecuted, the more the presence of Christ, who is absolutely lovely in terms of forgiving enemies and turning the other cheek and always overcoming hopelessness with hope, becomes evident. So the fact that we're under the cosh a little bit and that people are closing the sort of doors of opportunity to us in society simply means there's a greater opportunity to talk about Jesus, to honor him, to love him, to serve him, and to reach out to people who actually live in some kind of fog of darkness still, which involves not exactly self-hate, but self-recrimination. They're longing to be set free, and it's our job to tell them they can be set free.
Absolutely. And from our heavenly king to our earthly king, what values should King Charles III take on from his late mother?
Well, I'm delighted that he wants to be caring for all faiths. That's a hospitable and broad-minded and generous attitude. But the faiths don't have the same values, and so ultimately you have to choose which one is better. His mother had a very vivid experience of Jesus, which marked her whole life, and was partly why she was such a vivacious and cheerful person who attracted so many people to her. So what Charles, I'd recommend very strongly that he learn about his mother's relationship with Jesus, about her prayer life, about the way she put him first, and was the way in which she was not ashamed to be his disciple, even though she was a queen. He could do very well from learning from something of his mother's genuine, authentic, and life-giving faith.
Absolutely. That has been Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope we didn't keep you from midnight mass. Catch up with Gavin Ashenden on our GB News Christmas special today at 2 p.m. and tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. Let's take a look at what you guys have been saying. Don't forget, keep your views coming. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk and tweet @gbnews. Alastair says, is that the Alastair? Hi, Calvin. Congratulations on your ordination and thank you for your balanced views to you and all the others at GB News for defending the right to free speech for the people, making the news interesting and the in-depth investigations into issues other channels fail to report. Happy Christmas to all and a new year to come. Kind regards, Alastair. Thank you very much for the kind words, Alastair. Really do appreciate that. That's the point of GB News, isn't it? Free speech means that we talk about the issues, not just that we want to talk about, that other channels will not discuss for certain reasons, political reasons mostly. John goes on to say, people say in 2022 Christmas is irrelevant. The perfect answer is 2022 years since what? Merry Christmas, Calvin, and thank you for keeping the faith, Brother John. Absolutely. I've never understood the argument. It's 2022. How can you still believe in Christ? It's like, well, yeah, it's 2022 years since the birth of Christ. That's why I still believe in him. Joan says, if people come to live in a Christian country, they should accept our faith, not be offended. Absolutely, Joan. They don't have to take on board the faith if they don't want to, but they should certainly respect it and tolerate it. Less of this Christophobia, please. Another John says, Father Calvin, Welby and other archbishops have done a lot of harm to the church with their woke left-wing behaviour. Do you not agree? All I will say is that the archbishops, and in fact, the bishops have been very quiet on the issue of this lady being arrested for praying silently. They'll talk about anything political, Rwanda, you name it, but will they stand up for a Christian who's been arrested for praying? We wait and see. Plenty more to come this afternoon on the show, including a report on terminally ill children who were flown to Lapland to meet Father Christmas. Don't go away. Welcome back. I am the Reverend Calvin Robinson covering for Alastair Stewart. Now, if you've ever thought Christmas wasn't all you thought it would be, spare a thought for those that may not see another. In Northern Ireland, the Children to Lapland Trust took a plane load of children with terminal and life-threatening conditions to see Father Christmas. Our reporter, Dougie Beattie, went along to find out more.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh.
Christmas gifts can come in many forms, and for families that have had a child with terminal or life-threatening illnesses, a getaway to a land of innocence, snow and make-believe may just be the ticket.
It means everything really, to be honest. We've never been in a family trip like this before, so it's going to be magical.
Yeah, this is the first time. This is Evie's first time away too. It's your first holiday? Yeah.
Ella was diagnosed with a brain tumour. So we had went through a whole year of chemo, radiation and everything, and we've come to the end of it, and the nurses said to us that they would nominate her, and that's how we got here.
The wait is finally over. This privately chartered jet behind me will fly these children to Lapland for the magic of Christmas and to meet Santa.
I'm going to see Santa.
Ah, and what are you going to ask him for?
A present. I'm going to ask him for like a gaming monitor and LED lights and all for my bedroom.
With such a journey, medical experience must be on hand. And Dr. Mark Rowlands is the medical director and explains the seriousness of the situation.
These children are sick. I mean, they are life limited and terminal. Some of these kids might never see Santa Claus again, so this is a big, big trip. But you name it, they've had everything: liver transplants, heart transplants, bone marrow transplants. Still a lot of them under a lot of care and treatment at the moment. They're all stabilised. We've all had the go ahead from their individual consultants that they're fit to go, and we want to make sure that they have a great day.
Even the flight crew have a soft spot for this trip, and Captain John Rowland is no different.
Oh, it's wonderful to see all the kids going away to see Father Christmas. They're really excited, so I love doing these flights.
The landscape and climate here are very different, and that gives the families an opportunity to sample some new experiences. The highlight of the day is the one-to-one with Santa, and his advice for children was very clear. How long should it be before they go to sleep on Christmas Eve?
On Christmas Eve it could be very good if they can go and sleep about at least at 9 o'clock in the evening, yeah. And then if they have a fireplace, so that they should check up that they have no fire in the fireplace on Christmas Eve.
The whole experience may be a lot to put into one day, but the children on this plane need specific medical support, and time is of the essence. But for most, it's a day that dreams will be realised and memories made. Dougie Beattie, GB News.
Such a heartwarming video. Thank you for that, Dougie Beattie. Now get ready for more travel chaos, with families driving home for the festive period being told to brace for disruptions as further rail strikes kick in from 6 p.m. Network Rail is advising passengers to travel today only if absolutely necessary, saying most people should try to complete their journeys by 3 p.m. In the latest strikes in the run-up to Christmas, Border Force staff as well as postal workers are also walking out over pay and work conditions, so they say. The Prime Minister has apologised for the Christmas travel disruption, but insists that public sector pay must be controlled. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has the story.
Well, the advice for today was from Network Rail to only travel if absolutely necessary. Most train operators are running severely limited services, if they're running any services at all. Nottingham train station, where I am today, is open, but only a handful of trains have been going in and out of it today. East Midlands Railway, who operate the station here, as well as stations in Leicester, Derby, and the routes in and out of cities in the East Midlands, they're not running any services whatsoever except a severely limited one between Corby and St Pancras into London. Those trains are going to be stopping really early, just like most trains. The advice, of course, today has been to finish your journeys by 3 p.m. because that's when most trains will terminate ahead of that RMT strike, which starts officially at 6 p.m. There are, of course, other unions on strike for other different reasons, depending on where you are in the country. So it is going to be very patchy, and it has been very patchy throughout the whole of the day. Of course, this is to do with that pay dispute as well as conversations around conditions and the future of what work is going to be like for people that work at railway stations and on trains for their careers. Of course, it is one of the busiest travel days of the year, and lots of people are hoping to get home, whether that's to places around the country here in Britain or maybe to places much further afield. And I learnt this morning from a group of Croatian university students that their plans had been hampered just a little bit by these train strikes.
I'm going to Manchester Airport. Well, I was supposed to take the train to Sheffield and then from Sheffield to Manchester, but yeah, there is no train, so now I have to grab an Uber. Yeah, I'm going home to Croatia for Christmas. Yeah, I'm hoping to get home by Christmas, but we'll see.
I was supposed to catch a train to Manchester to go home for Christmas, to Croatia actually, to visit our families. But unfortunately we couldn't get a train because of the strikes, even though we bought our tickets on the website, but it turned out not being any available trains to get to.
Well, I'm a bit frustrated that the train isn't running, especially because there was no notice that it's not going to go. I thought the strike would be affected like from 6 onwards. That's at least what we saw. Well, we need to find another solution. It's probably going to be an Uber. We don't know exactly yet. We will see what we can find. And it is what it is, but I understand the situation. It definitely makes sense. It could have been planned out a bit better, so we don't get in this situation to arrive here and now ask ourselves what we're going to do.
Yes, and that group of students said to me that they expect their Uber to Manchester was going to cost them around £150 to £200 today. Lots of people, of course, have already made other travel arrangements, whether that means they're getting out of wherever they're from as early as possible earlier in the week, or they've taken to the roads today. 17 million cars are expected to be on the roads according to the AA, so that's expected to be quite congested, depending on when you're travelling. Midday is supposed to be the busiest time of day for travelling on the roads according to the AA for Christmas Eve. The other big one is, of course, coach services, National Express here in Nottingham. I've just been in there for a few moments and it looks like it's really busy. Lots of people who have clearly come to the train station have then gone to the local coach station to try and get a coach from there instead. Coach operators have said that they are putting on extra services and have been putting on extra services for Christmas Eve. This strike is going to continue. It doesn't seem that there's any dispute negotiations that are going to be coming up that are going to fix this right now. And so as we do go into the new year, when we've got rail strikes, we've got border force strikes, as well as everything else that's going on in the background with the NHS and postal workers, it seems that strikes, as they have been a big part of 2022, are going to continue way into 2023.
Will Hollis there in my home county of Nottingham. Thank you very much for that. Now let's have a look at what you guys have been saying. Keep your views coming. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. Paul says, compliments of the season and blessings to all at GB News. That's a nice way of putting it. Interesting story earlier, but can I clarify one thing? The Church of England is definitely in decline and will decline further due to generational lack of appeal. However, this is only one part of the story. Pentecostal/evangelical churches, including ours, are bursting at the seams with a great age representation. Our church alone has 45 really young children in its youth group. Such is the growth of worshippers in this sector of the Christian community that churches are establishing satellite churches in order to cope with it and preach the gospel to more and more. That's the good news. Please have a blessed Christmas and New Year. Thank you for sharing some good news, Paul. It is always great to hear. Even though the established church might be in decline, other churches are propping up and filling the gap that is much needed. Paul, is this a different Paul or the same Paul? Says, I don't have a problem with praying silently anywhere. Prayer is a very important part of my life. Do we now have a thought police force? We must maintain our freedom of thought and speech. It is the so-called unbeliever who doesn't like prayer. Perhaps they realise it is very powerful. I'm with you there. They think prayer is powerful. That's why they're trying to stop it. Last comment from Julia, who says, really enjoying Calvin on the Alastair Stewart programme and love Phil Champion's dog. Please, can we have more dogs and more Calvin? I'm with you on that one. More dogs on GB News, please. Very good. And here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Calvin, thank you. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Protesters have clashed again with police in Paris as a vigil was being held at a Kurdish cultural centre where a gunman killed a woman and 2 men and left several others injured. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. It's after riots broke out yesterday in the wake of the attack. Members of the Kurdish community have been gathering this morning close to where the incident happened. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police is in custody in relation to the shooting. This is a developing story and we'll bring you more on this as we get it. Families driving home for the festive period face travel disruption with severe traffic on the roads due to train strikes today. Travellers heading abroad are also being warned of delays as Border Force officials walk out for a second day. Disruption at UK airports was brought under control yesterday as the military stepped in to replace workers on strike. Meanwhile, Scotland's rail operators warning strikes starting today will severely limit services, with people being advised to only travel if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, there's disruption to Christmas deliveries for many as postal workers represented by the Communication Workers Union continue to walk off the job over pay, jobs and conditions. Royal Mail employees began their industrial action on Friday ahead of Christmas. At least 19 people are thought to have died as a heavy storm sweeps across parts of the US. A number of fatalities have involved road traffic accidents, including a pile-up in Ohio that reportedly killed at least 2 motorists. Several were also injured. Temperatures plunged as low as minus 45 degrees in some areas, with around 200 million people under weather warnings. The storm's forecast to develop into what's being described as a bomb cyclone, bringing with it heavy, blinding snow. Forecasters are predicting a white Christmas for the Highlands with unsettled weather for the rest of the UK. The Met Office has put a yellow warning for snow and ice in place for most of the Highlands, running from tomorrow night until 6 p.m. on Boxing Day. Meanwhile, downpours are forecast in most other places over the Christmas weekend. The Environment Agency has issued 66 alerts for possible flooding in England. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mixed with plenty of sunny weather towards the southeast and more changeable elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in Scotland, here the earlier rain and hill snow will become confined to the Northern Isles. Heavy showery rain in the west, best of any sunshine in the east. Across Northern Ireland, there will be plenty of outbreaks of showery rain. These could turn heavy and perhaps thundery later on with hail possible. Whilst the afternoon will start dry and bright in the northwest of England, a spell of heavy rain is likely later, with hail and lightning for some. It will be a similar story for much of Wales. We can expect some fine weather for a time before a band of rain pushes through, likely turning thundery at times. Meanwhile, in the East Midlands, the weather should stay fine through the afternoon, with plenty of winter sunshine. Perhaps not feeling as mild as during recent days, with highs of around 9 Celsius. It's a similar picture as we look across East Anglia. Here too, we can expect a dry and mostly sunny afternoon. Temperatures may just about scrape into double digits. Somewhat cloudier towards the south coast, with some showers pushing through, though these should be relatively few and far between. It will be milder here with highs of around 12 Celsius. A band of intense showery rain will push eastwards this evening, bringing the risk of hail and thunder. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. I am the Reverend Calvin Robinson, covering for Alastair Stewart. Have you ever wanted to make a change? Have you ever wanted to help your community? Your MP can help you, apparently. Gloria De Piero speaks to Richard Graham MP and his 2 constituents, Rosie and Maisie, about how they are working together to change the law on spiking.
So today we're going to find out how 21-year-old Macy worked with her MP for Gloucester, Richard Graham, to change something which they discovered by something which happened to you, Macy, almost a year ago to the day. Let me introduce your mum, Rosie, as well. So just tell us what happened to you almost a year ago to the day.
So I was out with a group of friends at university.
Where's that?
In Worcester, just a normal night out with the girls, and yeah, I got needle spiked basically in my arm. Yeah.
In a club?
Yeah, so we were out in Worcester. It's 2 separate clubs that belong to the same people. So you go to the first one, then you travel to the second one, and we always pre-drink, save money and stuff. Didn't have any drinks out. Got to about 12, I think. Suddenly started to feel really sick. Was sick in the club. Went outside to get fresh air. Sort of collapsed a bit on the table. Thought it would just be feeling weird, so carried on. Was literally going all night till like 4 a.m. And then yeah, woke up the next morning and found it on my arm.
What did you find on your arm?
So it was like a circular bruise with like a pinprick in the middle, and it was the only thing on my arm. There were no other marks or bruises or anything. It was right at the back here, so.
And then presumably you tell your mum.
Yeah, rang my mum.
Yeah, it rang me and said, what do you think this is? And I said, it looks like a needle mark. And then just Maisie was almost, I think she was still in the throes of whatever had been put into her, because she was quite relaxed about it at that point, I would say, and then got more and more upset. I then went on trying to find out what to do. I hadn't got a clue what to do.
And then at some point you go through this terrible, awful experience, and there was loads of chat about this in the news about the time that you got spiked, particularly lots of university students sort of really raising this issue. So at what point do you go and see your MP, Richard Graham?
Well, I actually emailed Richard to say what had happened and just to say, what can we do? And I think my view on it, and I think Maisie will agree, was there was no help at that point. And then it was looking at the next thing and the next thing.
So, Richard, tell me, from your point of view, what happened? How did you, when you saw this email, did you invite Rosie and Maisie in?
I think it helped that I already knew Rosie from the work she's been doing raising funds for the homeless and so on. But in essence, as you know so well, when an MP gets an email of help from a constituent, there are various different things you can do. In this case, reading through the story, which you outlined very articulately at some length, it seemed to me that this was something I didn't know much about, spiking. Yeah. My children are a bit older. They didn't really get the spiking problem. So I started doing some research on this, and the more I looked into it, the more I came to the conclusion that there was a gap in the law, and that what we needed to do, actually, apart from the constituency business of trying to help Maisie and Rosie, was do something that was wider.
And how important was it when you were thinking about how you might change the law? How important was Maisie's personal experience to helping you to formulate a plan?
It was absolutely crucial, because without her anecdotal evidence, plus the photographs that showed, this was for real, because there's been some doubt in some government, political, police circles as to whether the spiking by a needle has actually happened. There's very little proven evidence of somebody being poisoned by a needle, and it's partly to do with the length of time between the act and then, if you like, the body being analysed and so on. So this was crucial to me because it was the proof. Plus, I know that Rosie doesn't make things up. So that enabled me to talk with people like the former Lord Chancellor Robert Buckland about what these two existing laws were all about and how we could do something that would make the offence of spiking much wider and therefore inhibit people from doing what had happened to Maisie at university.
What stage are you at in changing the law that was inspired by meeting your constituent, Maisie?
We've made pretty good progress. The then Home Minister, Rachel Maclean, came up to Gloucester, saw both Rosie and Maisie together, feels quite strongly about spiking herself, and was helped by another colleague who, in fact, had been spiked earlier in her life too. And they were working on getting a change to the law, which they hoped would come through early in the new year. Since then, we've had a change of government and ministers, but the new minister in the Home Office, Sarah Dines, I spoke to her last night. She's talking with Suella Braverman this week.
Home Secretary.
And I'm hoping that they will confirm whether the best way is to tweak the existing law and widen the scope, or whether it needs something new and separate, which would take longer. So I think probably a bit of secondary legislation in the jargon could do the job, and it could be done relatively fast if there's the will to do it. And I'm not going to let go of this.
And what does that mean to you? How important is it that from a terrible thing happening to you, you contact your Member of Parliament and they try and change the law? Would you recommend other people go and see their MPs if something bad has happened and there's a loophole in the law?
Yeah, I know. I think the fact that at the minute, not many people, people are just doing it and they don't realise the consequences of it.
Is it that commonplace,
I honestly
you think?
I was speaking to a police officer and she was saying, by the sounds of it, it's more like a joke. People are finding it funny. It's not I don't think many people are going it with the intent to do any secondary offences against these people. Like, they're in big groups of people probably, and they're finding it funny to do it to other people.
With the needles or with the drinks? Or
I think with both. The police are finding it that with both. So I think the fact that it will actually be there in law very clear that it's illegal to do, and it will be easier to convict, then I think it's going to deter people more.
And why is it important for there to be a specific law against this? Because it's illegal, right, already. Of course, you can't go around injecting people with with things to alter their consciousness.
Yeah.
It's illegal if you're doing it to inject poison into someone or for reasons of sexual gratification. But I don't think at the moment it is illegal just to push one of these short, small needles into your arm, which you hardly feel. And I think that's the thing, as Macy was saying, this is about nudging behaviour. It's about sending a clear message. It ain't funny. It will land you in trouble. You'll have a criminal record. You won't be able to get a job easily, and it's going to be a real difficulty. So don't go there.
That's a really good point, the criminal record point. So it's basically, we need to get tough to make people realise that it's not a joke, it's really serious, and there could be really serious consequences for you if you do this. And it could have been a lot worse for you.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that.
Well, I think this is something that really upset me as a parent, is that it changed Maisie's view on what was a sensible thing to do on that evening. Maisie is a sensible girl. She's a tired girl. We'll get to 1 o'clock in the morning. Maisie wants to go home. She wants to go to bed. She's had enough. That night, Maisie was up partying, in her words, until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And her words to me were, I would have done anything anyone asked me to do. And that terrifies me, because as a parent, you know, you bring your children up and you teach them to don't go with strangers, don't do this, or, you know, when they're younger. But actually, if you're inhibited and you've been given something you don't know what you've been given, and it changes your mind, if Maisie had accepted to do something with somebody, she would have given her consent, but it wouldn't have been her consent.
Terrifying thought.
Yeah, it really is. And as a parent, that makes me go cold, because how on earth would she ever go on to prove in a court of law
that she didn't
give consent?
Willingly consent.
And that's terrifying. And that could have damaged her for the rest of her life, you know. It makes me quite emotional, because I think it could change everything. And there's a lot of girls out there and boys out there that this has happened to.
How are you in yourself after a year? Do you get nervous when you go out to a club?
I'm a lot better now, yeah. The start of from after it happened to probably about a couple of months ago, I really struggled with anxiety and going out, and had to come home early, and literally...
It has changed you.
Yeah, I couldn't cope in a big setting like all my close friends know. Like, I feel like I put on a brave face and I'm like, oh, I'm out with my friends, I'm having a good time, but all my close friends know. They were, bless them, they were so good. They were, as soon as I start to get a bit panicky, they were like, right, we're going home, it's fine. But to be fair, recent, I've been a lot better, but it's taken a while.
And now we see an example of Macy's people power through you on those green benches, trying to change the law because of Macy.
And I think, Gloria, that is really the treat of being an MP, is that if somebody comes to you with what is a social issue, there are times when you can do something about it. And if we can get a result out of this that over time shows that spiking, particularly by injection, but also by putting drugs in drinks, actually shrinks as a problem that's being reported to the police or not being reported, then at the margin, that is a really useful social change that means parents like Rosie will not have those sort of nightmares again, and students like Macy can go out and have fun without having to worry about that risk. That's worthwhile.
It absolutely is, and I'm sure everybody watching will just wish you the best and know that you'll keep fighting. But Macy, your MP could get you a change in the law. We wish it hadn't come to this, but at least something good.
Good is coming out of it, yeah, no, definitely.
Rosie, Macy and Richard, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time to reflect on those who have made a real change in 2022. This includes a mum of two, Kate Wilson, who won the hardest working festive feat competition for her dedication to charity. Coventry Clothing. Her best friend Jenny nominated Kate for all her hard work, and this award is designed to honour people who truly deserve to put their feet up this Christmas. Kate joins me now. Hello, Kate. Happy Christmas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Can you please tell us what is your charity about and who started it?
So I started it when I was working for another charity in Coventry, and I was seeing the need for clothes for a lot of people, and there wasn't anywhere that you could send them to other than a charity shop. And if you're really struggling, you can't always go to a charity shop either. So I started asking friends to donate clothes, and it's evolved to this big charity with 3 members of staff supporting 2,000 people a year.
Amazing. Well, congratulations for your nomination. Why do you think you were nominated?
I'm astounded by it. I really don't think there's a lot of people that work really hard. I couldn't do it without my amazing team. That's them on screen now. And so it's not just me. There is a team of us doing this. So I'm just really, really honoured to be nominated and get my lovely shawl hamper to look after my feet this Christmas.
Lovely. And has the charity work been a success?
It has, yeah. We've supported 1,876 people this year with clothes parcels. 1,147 of those are for children. So there's a lot of need for kids' clothes, lots of parents who can't afford for their kids to have coats, lots of schools contacting us saying kids are coming without socks or without appropriate underwear. And they're ringing us saying, have you got some socks you can bring in? If you've got coats, you can drop off to us. It's absolutely heartbreaking once you start to see the level of need there is in the city.
Yeah. Do you think charities are being recognised enough in this festive period?
I think a lot of people do give to charity at Christmas. And giving that I have this month, we could make such an impact, not just in Coventry, but across the West Midlands and maybe further.
Yeah. And is the cost of living crisis affecting you as a charity?
We have been down on donations recently. We did a massive appeal 2 weeks ago because we had about 10 children waiting on clothes and we didn't have any at all. And I think more and more people are choosing to sell their second-hand clothes to try and make some money back rather than give to charity. But we do appreciate everyone who can donate to us, whether it's financially, whether it's donating second-hand clothing or new clothing as well, as we have had great success through things like an Amazon wish list where people have bought things and sent them to us.
Lovely. Well, congratulations again, Katie. That's Katie Wilson from Clothing Coventry. Well done on all your charity work, and thank you very much, and have a good Christmas. Let's have a look at a couple more of your views. Jocelyn emailed in to say, please stop being critical of the Prime Minister. Could you really do any better? I thought religion was inclusive. Could you cope with the constant haranguing the poor man is constantly getting? Religion is inclusive. That does not mean that everything goes. It's quite the opposite, actually. But no, I couldn't do better. But I'm not a politician. I haven't put myself up for election. I think it's quite simple to be Prime Minister, really. Just protect the borders, protect people's freedoms, and get out of the way. That's all you've got to do. Keith says, God's love for everyone. Merry Christmas. What a lovely message. Thank you for that, Keith. Bob emailed to say, can I be a Christian based on my deeds? I believe in the wisdom and insights of Jesus, but not in the miracles. I see the baptism and resurrection as metaphors. I'm with Jesus rather than Paul. Many thanks and best wishes. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't think you can be with Jesus if you don't believe in him and believe in his miracles. You can believe whatever you like, but to call yourself a Christian, usually you have to believe in the resurrection for our eternal salvation, and you have to repent and follow Christ. I'd say my recommendation, Bob, would be read John's Gospel and then come back to me and let me know what you think. And our last email, Keith got in touch to say, good afternoon, Father Calvin. May I wish you and everyone associated with GB News a very Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy and prosperous New Year. The enormous, overwhelming and life-changing benefits of being a Christian are not being expressed and highlighted. Thank you for that, Bob. Keith, really do appreciate that. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Coming up next is the Christmas special, GB News Christmas special. God bless you all. Have a wonderful Christmas period, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mixed with plenty of sunny weather towards the southeast and more changeable elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in Scotland, here the earlier rain and hill snow will become confined to the Northern Isles. Heavy showery rain in the west, best of any sunshine in the east. Across Northern Ireland, there will be plenty of outbreaks of showery rain. These could turn heavy and perhaps thundery later on with hail possible. Whilst the afternoon will start dry and bright in the northwest of England, a spell of heavy rain is likely later, with hail and lightning for some. It will be a similar story for much of Wales. We can expect some fine weather for a time before a band of rain pushes through, likely turning thundery at times. Meanwhile, in the East Midlands, the weather should stay fine through the afternoon, with plenty of winter sunshine. Perhaps not feeling as mild as during recent days, with highs of around 9 Celsius. It's a similar picture as we look across East Anglia. Here too, we can expect a dry and mostly sunny afternoon. Temperatures may just about scrape into double digits. Somewhat cloudier towards the south coast, with some showers pushing through, though these should be relatively few and far between. It will be milder here, with highs of around 12 Celsius. A band of intense showery rain will push eastwards this evening, bringing the risk of hail and thunder. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good afternoon, it's 2 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Protesters have clashed again with police in Paris as a vigil was being held at a Kurdish cultural centre where a gunman killed a woman and 2 men and left several others injured. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. It's after riots broke out yesterday in the wake of the attack. Members of the community have been gathering this morning close to where the incident happened. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police is in custody in relation to the shooting. This is a developing story and we'll bring you more as we get it.
69 years old. He's a former metro driver. He lived in a flat alone in the centre of Paris. His own 90-year-old father says that he's crazy. He collected guns.